Hi folks, it's Gary here and very warm welcome to the fourth official here on YouTube for a very special deep dive into current Rangers loanee Mikey Moore. Joining me on this one is one of the regular voices from the fourth official over on Patreon. It's Scott Young and very special guest, a podcaster down from Tottenham, Harry Scarfe. Harry, it is a pleasure to have you here on the fourth official.
Oh, pleasure's mine to come on. Thank you very much for having me. Looking forward to getting into it, to talk about such a fantastic player in Mikey Moore, to talk about Rangers. So it should be a really good one. So appreciate you having me.
Yeah, no, and I think that the reason for getting you on is Mikey Moore came up to Glasgow in the summer as one of the kind of jewels in the crown for Kevin Thelwell's summer recruitment. If it's to be believed, it's quite a hefty loan fee that Rangers have paid Tottenham to get Mikey Moore up playing first team football this year. And I think we can all say that until probably within the last kind of couple of weeks and Rangers under Danny Rule, his head coach, as opposed to Russell Martin, we've started to see glimpses of just quite what Mikey Moore can bring to the table. Obviously, from a Spurs perspective, what attributes do you think really Mikey brings to the table, and what were Spurs looking to do in terms of getting him out on loan up to Glasgow?
Good question. So Mikey Moore is seen as this really glamorous young player, but we haven't seen him many times with the first team because it's a case of, would have protected him, would have, introduced him carefully. You see it with lots of situations, like, again, using the Premier League as an example, you've got Esteval for Chelsea, great young player, but they're very mindful about the minutes he gets, how they use him. They don't want to get him injured, or they just tend to embed them slowly. So I think more in particular, apparently from what people have said as sort of big sources, that he recognised for himself that first team football's best for his development, which I think tells you all you need to know about how switched on this kid is and how maybe he's different to others. If you said to a lot of people, stay at Tottenham, all the luxuries, or go anywhere to a loan, a lot of people choose the easy option. You don't want to relocate more than anything, but he's done that. So we haven't seen too much from him, but I think he's very good 1v1. I think a couple of games come on for Tottenham in Europe, and he really did take my eye. So I think it'd be fair to say he hasn't hit the ground running at Rangers. But I think the aim when the loan was made, I think the aim is the same now, and that is to eventually see him start regularly from the, we didn't see that, did we, under Russell Martin, let's be totally honest with you, whereas the Spurs fan aim is to see him hopefully, let's say 9 times out of 10, he had 10 games and 9 of them at least where he starts the game from the start, and the other maybe gets a chunk off the bench, whereas I think up until now, we've seen him in and out the team, floating in and out, which is great because he's still getting minutes, but he could also get that, not quite as much, but still at Tottenham. So you probably agree with me, more than me, in terms of it doesn't look like it's been the perfect loan at the moment. But I think come back to this conversation, even in, let's say, 2 months' time, I think you're talking about a player that does make that position his and his team. And you get to a point at the end of the season where you might go, look, it'd be great if we could keep him. Of course, we can't. It would be fantastic. So the aim's the same, minutes, confidence more than anything, because next season he could come into a Tottenham side at the moment without really a recognised and prolific left winger. We could do with that. So a lot of Spurs fans look at it now and go, if only we had him. But at the same time, I think this year is going to do him really good. And I think now the changing manager has got to be such a positive thing for Mikey Moore as well as Rangers.
I kind of want to touch on, he was linked with a lot of clubs in the summer. Everyone, I think Dortmund were linked, a lot of English Championship as well. In hindsight, do you think he picked the right club, or would you have, in the summer, when you said, when he was joining Rangers, did you think it was a good move for him, or would you have rather him go to the Championship or somewhere in Europe?
Great question. If I'm honest, I think the move surprised me a little bit. It's not what I expected. I thought maybe something like the Bundesliga would where he'd go, but he hasn't. He chose the Scottish Premiership with Rangers, and he spoke about in detail when he joined the club, didn't he, about the connection with Rangers. It clearly means a lot to him, which is great. You don't want to play just going on loan purely like, okay, I want to get a few minutes here and there. He clearly wants to do well at Rangers, which is a very big part. I think up until now, if I'm totally honest with you, I would say another club. I can't stress enough as an outsider how disastrous I think the appointment initially was of Russell Martin. I think it's somehow looks even worse now, which seemed impossible. I didn't get it at the time. He's failed at Southampton and was massively bigged up for no reason at the start. But he completely flopped. So I think Moore suffered under that manager. ideas, his stubborn tactics, his naivety, saying the same thing, carbon copy after every game. So I think now Moore, I think, is going to have a really good rest of the loan. So it's hard to say right now, but it hasn't been the perfect loan at all. But I'm surprised with who he went to answer your question, Scott. I thought it would be something like the Bundesliga. You know, we've seen like one of our young players, Luka Vuskovic, go to Hamburg. I thought it would be a move like that. And a lot of people diss the Scottish Premiership. And some people make valid points about maybe the golfing difference between the Scottish Premiership and the Premier League. But a lot of people are harsh and unfair simply. Because I would say the Scottish Premiership is good if you want to toughen up a little bit. If you look at Mikey Moore, you think you're a great player, but you could probably do with a little bit of strength, a little bit of muscle. You learn how to protect the ball, because in the Premier League right now, you are eaten alive. You've got Florian Wirtz, for example, that comes massive signing to Liverpool from Bayer Leverkusen, and he's just pushed off the ball. Xavi Simons, the same with my club, Tottenham. Great players, but just pushed off the ball too easily. We need to toughen them up a little bit, and I think the Scottish Premiership is right in that aspect. So right now, Moore himself and probably Tottenham are thinking this wasn't the right move, but I'm so confident that come the end of the season, it'll be right for him. And as that title says, capable of much more. He certainly is. And I think Rangers are capable of getting more out of him too. So I think we'll see both things come hand in hand. And I hope he has a good rest of the loan.
In terms of the type of player Mikey Moore was sold to the Rangers supporters being as someone with that kind of X factor, someone that can come up and score goals, be creative, create opportunities, and we've yet really to see too much of that. Still to obviously score up here, very few assists. I think he's maybe got one assist for Rangers so far this season in his 15 appearances, albeit 8 of them have been as a substitute. And I just wonder if over the course of the last kind of couple of games with Danny Rule, we've seen him play a little bit more inside, more as a kind of number 10 as opposed to as a kind of wide player playing on the wing, where Russell Martin played him at the start of the season, tended to be mainly on the right-hand side of a three at front, and he kind of drifted mainly in and out of games and was fairly ineffectual. But what we saw, particularly in the Old Firm game at the weekend, where he came on with Rangers being down a man after a red card to Tello Asgard, and what Mikey Moore was able to bring to the table at the weekend was an out ball, someone that could take the ball, could move up the park with it, had energy, had a bit of guile about him, and it's something that I think we've seen a bit more of in the last couple of games where he's playing a little bit more inverted, a bit more inside. Is that something that you mentioned, obviously, him being a left winger for yourselves last year? So interesting to kind of see that we've seen probably more of him inside than outside.
That's interesting. And when he's been at his best for Tottenham, which last season was only 2 or 3 appearances off the bench, for example, in European cup competitions, a couple of times as well, actually, to be fair, in the league, it was, although he played left wing, he'd come inside a lot. And Ange Postecoglou, our manager last season, I mean, you'll know all too well for the wrong reasons, maybe, but he was all about touchline wingers, which incredibly frustrating for someone like Moore. So Moore would find himself drifting inside as like an inside forward with someone like a Brennan Johnson that we've got as well, suits a lot better. So yeah, you're right. I think that's just clever coaching, isn't it? You look at a player and you go, look, Mikey, you can probably get quite a lot out of you and not going to move your position. But although I think Moore's got a lot more to give, and he will, I'm confident, show that. And I think Rangers get a lot out of him this season in the end, the second half of the season, or the rest that we've got now. I do think you were sold maybe a little bit of a false dream, and that'll be unpopular among Spurs fans. But I think you were sold that Moore's going to be this player that's going to be revolutionary for Rangers. Whereas for me, the reality is he's a great young player. He's not ready now. This is a loan move to get him ready for the future, to give him minutes, to show potential in moments. I don't see him as a player that's going to be producing every single game. I see him as a player in moments that can, that spark is a key word, I think, with Moore. A little moment here, great little ball here, great little goal here. That's where I see Mikey Moore. I don't see him as a player to carry the Rangers team from, losing a game to winning a game every single week. That's just, for me, not Moore. He's not that level yet. He can be. So the key word is potential. I'd say look at his age. So whereas Spurs fans and other football fans that sold this dream like Mikey Moore, look, wow, you got this fantastic player that is ready now. No, this is to get him ready. So that's all I will say. But it's interesting and great to see new manager coming in, and I think doing well with quite a few players. I don't think it's just Mikey Moore, by the way. And I think the whole system is already getting some things right, and Mikey Moore is a key ingredient in that. And hopefully he'll get more starts, because of course with Tottenham we want to see him start games. But on a personal level, away from Tottenham, I just want him to do really well. Seems like a really good kid, switched on, bright, very enthusiastic, and for football's sake, you want to see him do well, because Rangers shouldn't be where they are now. You know that, I know that. Nobody wants to see it, really.
Do you think Danny Rowe is a good appointment for him? Say that because in this before Danny Rowe, we obviously like with Steven Gerrard heavily, and Jermaine Defoe, who obviously Moore spoke to him before they moved to Rangers. So would you have rather, from a Spurs and Mikey Moore perspective, do you think Danny Rowe's perfect for him, or would you rather seen him under Steven Gerrard, Jermaine Defoe, and Steve Holland, and that was linked? Do you think, would you rather see him under Gerrard, or would you see him under Rowe from a Spurs perspective?
Great question. Right now, I say Rowe, but of course, you don't know how much is what I call a new manager bounce, which we in particular do see in the Premier League in terms of, the players really want to prove a point. But I will say, without being disrespectful, the bar's been set low by Russell Martin in terms of can you get better than that? And I don't think Russell Martin is all of a sudden like fraud or anything like that. I just think he's been overhyped all of his career. Like he got a very good Southampton team up. But then, I know they've struggled after because they sold players, but they had some good players in there. It wasn't miraculous that he got them up. And I was very surprised he got the Rangers job after the Southampton season. So I think right now Moore's got certainly a better manager. I think if you come back to this in the early part of next year, we'd know just how good it is. But, Mikey Moore is a player that hopefully will get a few more starts and can really start to make an impact for you guys. But no, to answer your question, I think right now, of course, there would have been that connection with Jermaine Defoe. But Jermaine Defoe isn't for me as well known as a coach as Rowe. So I think Rowe would be the sensible option. I think Rangers had to get this appointment right at the moment. It looks like they certainly have, and they're not going to go backwards, which I thought they were. I don't know about you guys, but under Russell Martin, if he's still in charge now, I think he would have gone backwards. That's the thing. But it's bad enough saying, look, we're going to stay where we are for the rest of the season, or we're just going to, just kind of go up slightly. But I actually think you would have gone backwards, and that's incredibly worrying and serious. Whereas I think now at least well, I think you are anyway, going forward. I still think it's going to be one of those seasons you look back and go, what happened here? But it's going to be like, rather what happened here than, oh my God, look at this absolute disaster. So I think he's got the right manager now for his development to get minutes, and he'll learn a lot of lessons in the Scottish Premiership. And I think as footballers, you learn lessons that you don't want to learn initially as well, in terms of maybe a little bit tougher than you expected. But the point is, a year at Tottenham sat on the bench isn't going to do him any good, as he toughens up a little bit of Rangers and experiences these things. And of course, you don't want him to get injured, but at the same time, he comes back from an injury or comes back from an illness, then he learns what it's like, how to avoid that injury. All these things that you learn as well that aren't necessarily nice. So I think he's got the right manager now to really progress.
And in terms of the character of Mikey, Harry, obviously a young lad trying to kind of make his way into the game. We've seen problems at Rangers over the number of years now of a kind of lack of a pathway from talented academy kids into being regular first team players, and the number of times I think our best young players, someone like Nathan Patterson, for example, ended up back down at Everton pretty quickly after only really 6 months in the Rangers first team. But you can really count on one hand the number of really talented kids that we've been able to bring through. We've got one in Finlay Curtis who's been in and out of the side, and really since Mikey Moore's came in, young Finlay's not really seen much first team action. And I think that's probably one of the biggest criticisms I think that's been thrown at Mikey Moore. Not his fault, but Rangers are developing another team's player as opposed to developing their own. So whilst it's great for Tottenham's perspective, if come this time next year he's had a year of football behind them at Rangers don't get the benefit of that when he can't deliver right here, right now for us. And we've maybe cost ourselves that development time with someone like Finlay Curtis. Where do you stand on that?
I think that's a really interesting point. And, a lot of Spurs fans will paint this image, and I understand why they do, that this is perfect for everyone. But I believe in honesty, and I think this is better for Tottenham than it is Rangers. But if right now it doesn't look necessarily the greatest for Rangers, but if he can get, half a dozen goals, a few assists along the way, and take Rangers from here to here, then all of a sudden it becomes a good move for Rangers as well. I think if you said it at the start of the year, it made sense. We forget about the manager and Russell Martin and or the situation with Tottenham's manager. The whole point, I think, mainly makes sense for the player. I think for Tottenham, it's like, great, this is really going to improve. But it was also like, right, for Rangers, could do with someone like this. But you're absolutely right. I think the priority should be players that you plan or have committed their long-term future, because the reality is Moore's here for a year, then that's it. There's no benefit for Rangers in the long term. The aim is for the short term, but I think because of how your season's gone, I believe out of Mikey Moore's hands and out of many people's hands, it's then got to the point where you're like, oh, hang on a minute. Whereas I'm sure Moore would have been brought in, not being funny, with the aim to be like, look, you could be the cutting edge over finishing first rather than second. Someone like you, a little bit dynamic, difference maker, whether it be off the bench from the start, whereas just literally actually hasn't gone to plan at all, has it, for Rangers? Couldn't have gone any worse. So I think a lot of it is when things aren't going well in the situation with Rangers and that awful start to the season, then people look at Moore and go and start to maybe think too deeply. So I still think this is a good move for all, but it's no secret about it. It's definitely better than Tottenham, but your priority definitely should be developing other players. But Moore, you can still get something out of. He can still bring goals. And I think he's a very young player, but it's just how much you're going to see now. And I just believe that in 2 or 3 years' time is when you're going to see, what you want to see from Mikey Moore. You're just going to see in moments now. It's about nursing, protecting. So development of players for the long term, definitely the priority.
And how high is that ceiling for Mikey Moore? How far can he go?
Very, very high. To be honest with you, I'm only young. I haven't seen too much of Mikey Moore because he hasn't, been involved too much with the first team. But you just, you get that feeling like it's almost like you get like a birthday present, or in the case of like the club, you get this really exciting big money signing you've made, and the club hype it up slightly more on social media. This is it with Mikey Moore, and just looking into it a little bit deeper. And some people go, "Oh, you're looking into it too much, Harry." Like every year they post of Mikey Moore, like of pictures of all through when he joined the Tottenham Academy. They do one from when he first started every single year. They didn't do that with the last player they've done that was Harry Kane, and they compare it as well. And the way you just listen to the way Kane speaks and the club speaking publicly, but also you hear stuff privately, but just what they put on the social media, they just see Moore as this gem. And we've got a good few young players at the club, but Mikey Moore seems to be top of the pecking order, someone that was identified at literally such a young age, and I think they see him as a Harry Kane as on the wing. And Tottenham right now, let me tell you, really lack winger quality, have lots of depth but lack winger quality, someone that can take on a man. And Mikey Moore is someone that's very good in 1v1s, and with Tottenham fans at the moment, we look at someone like Brendan Johnson, whoever it may be, Wilson or De Bear, and we go, you just don't take on your man. Whereas Mikey Moore will do that. And one thing I will say about Moore, and I should have mentioned it already, confidence isn't an issue. Like, he's not going to look at someone that could be a great defender and go, look, I'm not going to take you on. He will take you on. And that's what I like about Moore. Nothing seems to faze him. No big game. No, he'd go to Anfield, let's say, last season for us at Tottenham, and he'd put in a performance, or we'd chuck him into Europe. He's not seems to be afraid. He's very mature head on very young shoulders, the way I put it. And he speaks really well as well. I don't know how much media he's done over in Scotland, but for me, he's really mature, really sensible, totally gets it. I really liked when he joined the club as well, as that I love Rangers. He made it really clear his intent. I've never seen a player be quite as open about, look, I'm just here for a year. I really want to make an impact. He just went more than the generic kind of robotic response you get. So I was really impressed by that. And his confidence does really impress me. But there'll be conversations about Moore when things aren't clicking for the team. But again, I'll say it again, I think over time this season, I think Moore will start to click and it really come into place, hopefully for Rangers too, as well as Moore.
Magic.
How close do you think, how close do you think, there was some Spurs people I watch on TikTok and stuff, and before Roll came in, there was talk of a recall. How close do you, if Russell Martin was still here, do you think a recall would have been an option in January? Would you have taken it, and would you think it would have been better off for all three parties in the Spurs, Moore and Rangers as a whole?
It's a difficult one, isn't it? It's really difficult. I still think that the move that has been done between Tottenham and Rangers for Moore is still right. And again, it's very difficult to say when you've got some. I don't know. Let's say you're building this grand house, and right now it looks not very good because it's in progress. It's literally a work in progress, or a big project. You've got this fabulous idea, but right now you're just looking at a pile of mud because it hasn't been complete yet. That's the way I see it with Mikey Moore and Rangers, in terms of you wait a few weeks and it comes good. The furniture's installed, the ceilings installed, etc., etc. And I just think over time it will click into place. But at the same time, I just think it's a bit unfair for Rangers and their supporters that were sold this dream that Moore was going to come in and score 15, 20 goals. And I just remember seeing stuff like that and thinking, hang on, where's this come from? Moore's going to be this player that's going to have an impact off the bench in games from starts, but he's not going to get you, for me anyway, any more than 5, 6, 7 goals if I'm being honest with you. That's what I think he can do. I just think that when there's a young player, it's exciting. And we've seen it, haven't we? All across Europe, young players are hyped beyond belief and have either flopped or fallen off a cliff, or just simply have lived up to expectation. But I think there's a lot of hype with Moore. But no, you raise a good question. I'm not totally sure. What I am sure about is right now, I think this is probably the best. But it's one of those moves that does benefit, his current club in Tottenham that he's registered at more. But I still hope that you can get a lot out of him. I think you will. I know you haven't seen a lot yet, but last couple of games, I mean, you'll know more than me. You would, I'm sure, watched the whole game. I haven't seen the whole game. I've just seen highlights, but I know for sure if you put Mikey Moore's name into social media, such as X, formerly Twitter, over the weekend, Rangers fans were literally raving about him. And that tells you what you need to know. In a short period of time, there's a couple of games with a new manager is making a difference. And I think he's different from other players where they'll just be trying to impress the new manager. And this is where Moore's at. I think he's just like, key's been unlocked almost. But no, you raise a really good question, Scott. So I appreciate it.
That will pretty much do us for this one. But if you've enjoyed Harry's input, he obviously very prominent down in the Tottenham podcast community. Where can people find a bit more of you, Harry?
Firstly, thank you very much for having me. I've really enjoyed it. Pleasure to speak to both of you. And I'm not just saying this because I'm on here, but I want Rangers to do very well this year. I'm not the biggest fan of Celtic, and I do like Rangers. I think they're always a great club to watch. And I know who I always wanted to win in the old firms. But it'd be good to see Mikey Moore hopefully progress. So hopefully he, for our sake and for your sake as well, does very well. But no, thanks for having me. You can follow me at Harry Scarfe too across all socials, like your X, your Instagram, your TikTok, for daily football and Tottenham content. I also have my own YouTube channel. It's called Harry Scarfe under my name. So surname being Scarfe around your neck with E on the end. And that is loads of content from fancy football to England to Spurs to England women to Spurs women. There's a lot going on there. Premier League content too. There's a lot every day. Podcasts, shorts, videos. So do a lot of stuff. Also write football articles as well. So really appreciate having me. If you ever need me back, just give me a shout and I wish you all the best the rest of the season.
Big thank you, obviously, to Scott as well for joining us on this one. And as always, a big thank you to you for watching. We encourage all your comments, all your likes, all your shares. Please interact with us here at the Fourth Official. We are always happy to hear from you. And we'll speak to you next time. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.